All right, what's up, everybody? My name is Chris Mayer, and you're tuned in to the Bit Show, the Boston Indies talk show and happy hour, of course, presented by Boston Indies, Boston's home for independent games. You can follow us on Twitter at Boston Indies, follow us on Meetup, meetup.com/Boston Game Dev if you want to find out about all the other fun stuff going on around town. We got a great show for you tonight, but before we get started, just a couple quick announcements. First up, tomorrow morning at 8:30, the Pioneer Valley game developers and another Castle co-working space are running a coffee hour. Again, that's tomorrow morning at 8:30. I'll put a link in the chat. As you know, casual hangout, go talk about design, chat about what you're playing, or if you have like an interesting design problem or something, you can throw it out to the group there. Boston Unity Group just announced talks for May 26th, and that's going to be with Jason Booth, the brilliant shader, shader engineer, I guess, behind the asset Better Shaders for Unity. He always does great talks, super funny, dry sense of humor, and just like absolutely brilliant technical mind. So definitely check that one out. Link to that is also in the chat. Fig Talks, the Boston Festival of Indie Games Talks and Learns, going to be the end of this month, May 29th, May 30th. Submissions for talks are over, but you can still get tickets for that. And finally, MassDigi and UMass Amherst are co-running a game jam called the Jumpstart Jam, and that's on June 4th. And that's kind of for like students or people who are kind of new to game development to get their feet wet, make something little, and kind of get started in making video games. Yes, question in the chat, wasn't that with UMass Dartmouth? I think, did I say that? I might have said Amherst. If I did, I'm sorry. It's UMass Dartmouth. And I will put a link to that in the chat, which in fact says UMass Dartmouth. There it is. And that's going to be it for me. We'll check back in at the end of the show, and I will talk about the guest that we have next week. But with that, let's get started.
Let's go!
And over to you guys.
All right. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Boston Indies Talk Show and Happy Hour, the only stream this side of the Pine Barrens, where you can hear a local cryptid and a local legend talk about cool Boston game developer things to cool Boston game developers. I am game designer Mothman, always swooping in when you least expect, Kate Olguin, and I am here with the one and only...
Wildly underprepared Ziba. Hey. I think you were calling yourself a cryptid. I'm jealous of this. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm just very ominous. Sometimes you can find me in a parking lot at like 1 a.m. just staring. If you shine a flashlight at my eyes, they glow. You know how it is.
I'm glad we managed to capture your elusive. I imagine our VOD and our YouTube capture you'll be blurry. There'll be debate as to whether you were at all.
I'm the first game I released on Steam was about being a Mothman going to a school for cryptids, and when we went to our first event, we printed out fake college pamphlets, and it was just a bunch of stock images of people, but they were all really blurry.
That game, I remember having fun with that game. I played it. I play tested it back when you were making it. That was good.
Oh yeah.
A lot of like flying in a hallway.
Yeah, it was the pitch was it was Octodad, but you can fly.
Yeah. So how's
Ziba, if you were a cryptid, what cryptid would you be?
If I were a cryptid,
don't mean to put you on the spot for this incredibly important question.
Yeah, no. This is deeply weird. I mean, I'm fond of like I want to be like the human pangolin. I like those things.
Ooh.
They're like mini armadillos, slightly cuter, rarely seen. I guess I don't really have any powers or terror. What to be a cryptid? Do I just have to be elusive, or
I think elusive is like an dubious existence.
I don't want to eat livestock if that's a requirement. Like I think a lot of people eat livestock or are blamed for it.
I think eating livestock isn't for everyone.
I'm watching our guests backstage in the green room with their eyes going there like, no, that's not. I don't know. But they're in the green room, so they can't actually.
We actually are intended to
of the
torture you with cryptid talk, knowing that that you are more experts than any of us.
We'll let them weigh in a bit, but let's maybe carry on with our show, because we've got as always, people have been doing exciting things here in town and sharing them in the Boston Game Dev Slack in the devlog room. So let's look over what people have been up to. I feel like we could use a sub musical moment here, right? Like we've got the opening theme song. We could use a musical note to transition into bit showboating.
All right, all I have is the Megadeth song from Duke Nukem 3D, so we're gonna use that.
Megadeth song from Duke Nukem 3D.
I didn't know Megadeth was involved in that.
Here, hold on. We need it.
Yeah, there's an album,
note.
I think.
Here's your musical note. It's our transition.
Sweet. And now we've fully transitioned into bit showboating. All right.
All right.
Yeah, it's another bug. Thank you.
It's Dross.
Thank you.
This bug is revised.
There's not a whole lot of communities who have this someone who in their lives feeds them this steady drip of new bugs. So I feel we're all very lucky to have this caloric intake of bugs every week. Thank you. This is very nice.
Every time I see it, I'm like, new bug dropped. Like, I can't wait. Like, and seeing Dross in action last week has really made me very excited to see where all these bugs are going. We've got Betty and Earl again, which I think I said it last week, but I'll say it again. I always love seeing updates from this game. It's absolutely adorable. It's just nice to look at. And I think you also mentioned it last week, Ziba, but I do really love those little cutouts that you can see like on the moon and the trees and stuff with like little musical notes. I love that.
You made it out of the best scrap paper you could find in the house. All right, Manny made an animation upsee, which appears to be a walrus getting hit by gold and growing wings and flying away at a lazy pace while staying asleep. And I think this
or me on a Saturday night.
Yeah, back to Shane's likening of games to theater. It's live. Things happen. The actors don't always learn their lines or behave. Sometimes they just lazily fly away, and that's what I love about it. This isn't a movie. Stuff happens the second time you do it differently than the first time.
Yeah, weirdly enough, this is a scene shot for shot right out of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Aaron Cooper is here with Moogle, I believe it's pronounced, or Moogle. A Moogle history-based strategy game. This looks pretty neat. I really feel what he says about the 500,000 more venues, because I still barely know how to play like Civ 6. I just do religion all the way because it's the only one I understand.
Yeah, it had me Googling the Mughals. I guess it was a 16th century empire around where modern-day Uzbekistan is.
Yeah. I'm very excited about it because I feel like a lot of strategy games that I can think of off the top of my head focus predominantly on like white European empires, and there are plenty of more empires in history to look at. So very, very excited to see more of that.
Oh, onto the Galactic Get Around. Yeah. So Evan, we were talking about this one before the show, Evan. This is a Crazy Taxi. Inspired idea, Crazy Taxi in space, and I love little alien who's just like rocking out on top of the taxi. Like, makes me want to get an Uber
I love that
and dance on the ceiling of it as we're going for safety, because I don't want to be inside breathing their air. But we were talking about that arrow up top, which is telling you where to go, and having vague memories of Sega having a legal hold on that as a game element, probably expired. But I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying lean into it and see if you can get sued. That's going to propel you out there to heights.
That'll get you some publicity. Spacey Taxi. I love the little guy dancing on top. That's you're right. That's how you should Uber.
There should be a checkbox when you get a car, an Uber. It's like, check the box, like, can I dance on this vehicle? I can dance.
I'll be standing on the ceiling, yeah, or on the roof. I check the box for Uber to just like bungee cord me to the top like a Christmas tree. Petrichor has recently had their 6th birthday. Happy birthday, Petrichor. 6 years. That's no joke. At least for me, I'm a bit of a whippersnapper. But also, it looks like Google has offered them funding to help further develop and release Battle Billiards, which I think we had. We showed some gameplay of this on like the first episode of this season or something. It looked pretty cool, so happy that they got funding for it.
Super cute. Right, and game dev years are kind of like dog years. You got to multiply them by some number. So that 6 is impressive there. And that makes the next one, like even more than one. And we're so happy for you, Snoozy Kazoo, and all the success that you have had in the last couple months. Or time has lost all meaning. However long it's been since you launched.
I think it was like a week, right?
I think it's been about 2
last
weeks.
7 years of your success with Turnip Boy. You, and I hope it keeps rocketing upwards like it has been. Yeah,
and if somehow you haven't heard of or played Turnip Boy lately, play Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. Available now for your own home. Yukon and Jen and Jordan are a great bunch, so definitely check them out.
Awesome. Yeah, that's everything you've been up to. If it wasn't listed in this, you haven't been up to it. It wasn't meaningful. This is really the only measure of progress in our lives, is if you get mentioned on this show. No, go ahead and shout out what you're doing in Devlog. We love to see it. All right. Was that it for today? Did we have anything else on the show? I'm trying to remember.
I think that's it.
Oh boy.
I'm just Joshin. Now it's time for a segment I like to call Introducing the Guests.
That's my favorite segment. Please explain it in excruciating detail.
Today's guests are partners in the creative and romantic sense. Rooted in comics, publishing, and tech, they jumped into the world of game dev the day after lockdown started. From their pandemic command center, they've swept the globe, picking up acclaim, cash prizes, and fans. Please welcome the founders of Black Tabby Games, Abby Howard and Tony Howard Arias. Welcome. Hey.
Hi. Welcome to the show.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Feeling nice. Thank you for having us.
That's our show today. Thank you, everybody.
That's it.
I'm gonna cut right to it. The heart of things. What's Scarlett Hollow? I'm gonna play dumb like I don't know, so you can explain it to our audience.
Oh, looking at me?
Yeah,
sure. Scarlett Hollow is a hand-drawn, choice-driven narrative horror game set in the mountains of North Carolina. It's vaguely a visual novel. It's vaguely an adventure game. I find genre labels confusing and things that often miss the point and I don't know,
but we have one
people.
Big genre, and that's horror spooks. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
That is my favorite.
So yeah, as you clearly have, as I do, you trouble categorizing a game, sticking labels on it. Horror sticks. Is this something you've wrestled with, or like a Steam tags? Do you care? Does it matter? How much effort have you had to put into the category?
Oh boy! I mean, so I'm pretty sure I like botched our initial Steam release in a lot of ways. I think I really didn't understand how their algorithm worked or what things were important. And when we were working on our game, our initial kind of big marketing push was, cartoonists and non-game devs make games all the time. And it feels like if we announced before there was something playable, people would maybe doubt our ability to do something good. They would maybe forget about us. So we wanted to go into super secret development mode. Release our first playable episode the second we announced the game, and then catapult into a Kickstarter from there. But like Steam makes you have a page that's like up for 2 weeks before you release something, because their algorithm is like important or something like that, I guess. I remember fighting that, being like, no, don't you understand? Our whole approach is about secrecy. We don't want people to know about our game. So I just kind of had like a page that was like really short to the point. That was like, if you know whose secret project this is, congratulations, but shh. And we got like, I don't know, like 30 wish lists.
Wait, so you were able to, you put up a really ambiguous wish list page?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it didn't do well on the wish list front. Thank you. Now, like when we released it, like we did pretty good download wise, but it does seem like now that more time has gone on, and I'm more in the weeds for like looking at how something like Steam works. Like, one, tagging was a mess to begin with. I made some rookie mistakes, like using the indie tag, which apparently you're not supposed to do. Yeah, it's just like, it's too wide a bucket, so it's hard to get attention there.
Yeah.
But also like something that sort of became clear was like Steam kind of like, its algorithm decides if you are worth promoting or not pretty quickly. And the fact that we weren't pushing anyone to our wishlist page, like, kind of dinged that original page for a long time. And it meant that we had to do a lot of our own marketing efforts to drive people there. Originally, our plan was, okay, we have a free-to-play first episode, and then we like sell a season pass DLC kit, and that upgrades the game. And we wound up deciding, like, just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I think, to pull the plug and just keep our first page to demo and launch a new early access page.
Because we've seen other people do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Other
not
people took
crash
the
and
step
burn because
before
of
us.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave our audience thinking that accepting this undersell that you've done of yourself in terms of your marketing prowess, because you have done some great things. First off, you had a successful Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's true. Yeah.
It's
Even
true.
with the initial Steam page blunders, which, you know,
Yeah.
to each their own, I guess.
It happens.
It worked out in the end for us.
We're in a good position now. I think there were things that I wish I maybe knew when we started. And I think there were other parts of our marketing that were very good. Just that initial Steam page was not.
It happens.
You're so hard on yourself.
So you mentioned like this mishmash of genres, and like clearly there's like a lot of heart and soul in this game. What were some of your inspirations? Like either game dev, non-game dev, whatever. What inspired you?
I guess one of the big inspirations for story and that sort of thing is kind of my own history with, I grew up in North Carolina, so a lot of the folklore of the region is very close to my heart and that sort of thing, and I really love it as a setting. I kind of want to do for North Carolina what Stephen King did for Maine, so slowly but surely I've been setting a lot of stories there. Anyway, so that kind of started it. And then there's also, of course, all of the games that we've played. So we really love Night in the Woods.
Yeah.
I love what
that's like probably the biggest influence far and away.
Yeah. I really liked the style in The Return of the Obra Dinn. That one, oh, it was so beautiful. What a beautiful game.
Yeah.
There's other ones.
Yeah,
also.
like I think that when you make a game or you make, I don't know, art, we'll say art, tell stories. I think there's like kind of two types of inspiration, like the Night in the Woods bucket of, oh my god, this is incredible, like, oh no,
Sorry.
I love this vibe. And then there's like the secondary bucket of like, I love this so much, but it's like I want to play around with some of the ideas because I really, really want to put my own twist on it.
Yeah.
I think in that second bucket, there's definitely a lot of inspiration from like the Telltale games. I think something that we have been trying to do with Scarlett Hollow is take parts of the formula that like those games and like Life is Strange have done, and then really lean into how do we like
really make choices
really
feel
make
impactful.
decisions feel impactful.
And especially with the relationship system, how do we make it feel like you're talking to people rather than trying to input coins of do good thing, get heart in return. So
Yeah, that's one of the in a lot of the inspirations. Those games, I didn't hear one quite yet that clearly had dating in it. You're making a cake made of horror and dating. And how do you balance those ingredients in, or do they naturally just magnet together and we all make out when we're afraid?
I think there is an element of horrible traumatic events bring people so close together, like they don't even have to, I don't know, like have that kind of getting to know each other period as much, because they've just kind of, they have a similar experience that other people simply cannot relate to. So there's a little bit of that.
Yeah. I think also
a little bit of hold me close, it's dark and scary outside.
Yeah, I also think like the dating element in our game is a lot closer to say like a Mass Effect than say a full-on dating sim visual novel.
Like
where
Monster Prom.
Yeah.
It's not
love
really the
Monster
goal.
Prom so
Yeah.
much.
Like it's kind of a part of the story that you can choose to explore if you so desire, but there's not going to be like sex scenes in this.
Yeah.
There's going to be a kiss, perhaps, some
Like,
hand holding.
Scandalous.
Like this is I don't know if this is lame, cheesy, strange, but I've definitely noticed something like as a consumer of games where like when I'm playing those long story driven RPGs, I'm just like more interested in playing ones that have some vague romance option instead of like, no, you can't date any of the characters.
Oh, and of course, part of the reason we have this is because the initial idea for the game started from what if you had a dating sim that was also like a series of horror stories. So it was very much kind of a what if you had to go on dates with people, but then every single date ended in like a unique and different horror story. And then this blossomed out of it. It's very much become way more than that. But kind of the vignette idea is still there. As you progress, you'll kind of see how all of these little interconnecting stories all come together into one really big climactic thing. Perhaps.
Maybe.
No.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
So on the topic of interconnected things coming together, a very important part of Scarlet Hollow is traits. You can do all sorts of things. You can talk to animals. You can do things that are less important than that. No, I'm kidding. You can talk to animals. You can be pretty. You can see the future. There's all sorts of things. So traits, was it hard to come up with this many, or hard to stop yourself from expanding the scope to more?
It was. I feel like the initial list was pretty exhaustive.
Yeah, you kept coming up with more, and I was like, but we could just have like 4, maybe 3.
Yeah, like I wanted
a
a minimum 6 because I felt like it was important to be able to take 2. Just because like combinations could lead to more sort of unique character builds. And it would make the experience feel more personalized. I remember at one point I joked about adding talk to animals, and then that became a Kickstarter stretch goal, and then we eventually hit that goal funding wise, and I was both overjoyed and a little sad because it meant like I had to go and figure out a way to insert a talking dog throughout like the finished product of episode 1, which also meant like if you had that trait, changing the way a bunch of other sprites displayed, so it was clear that the words were coming from the dog and not a human. Yeah, I think there were like there was one I distinctly remember cutting that was like a you're funny, you tell jokes.
I couldn't write it. Like I write humor comics, but I can't write jokes.
I think we also just folded it all into every dialogue option.
Yeah, like most of them are pretty funny. Like a lot of them are kind of just like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if the strong person did this ridiculous thing? So
Every line of dialogue starts with a man walked into a bar.
is this a joke? Is this funny?
Yeah, like I think the funny one was what eventually became Street Smart, actually.
Yeah, so like I gotta say, Talk to Animals did not feel shoehorned in at all. I couldn't imagine life without Gretchen there. I just been
Yeah.
talking to Gretchen the dog, and her rivalry with the cat has been the heart of my experience so far. I don't know. I think I really appreciate the system you got there. I've only made, I chose two and been playing as that, but they're present in a way that just sort of screamed to me, wow, the effort they put in to make it really feel like I made a choice is something special.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot to us. We're so glad it's been effective instead of like, geez, this is so annoying. I can't believe I have to be a character.
I can't believe I have to interact with this game I bought because it's an interactive story.
How dare they?
So you've had to come up with the ideas and then follow through, and you're doing it together, and you're doing this all as a couple. How's that dynamic?
I think this has been a much better collaborative experience than I would have been able to have with most other people. I tend to feel really bad about telling people, like kind of pushing back against other people's ideas, because I'm just like, oh, well, I don't want to make them feel bad. But with Tony, it's like, well, they're married to me, so they can't be mean to me if I'm just like, I think it would be better if it was like this. And we also already have kind of like a basic amount of being able to communicate with each other.
Right.
So that has been extremely helpful.
We're good at communication. I've like been an unofficial sounding board and sometimes editor for stuff you've done for years. So it's like
I trust Tony's
we're on the same
storytelling.
wavelength creatively.
Nice.
Love
Yeah, that's
that.
great. Highly recommend.
Well, maybe not
If you
for
can pull it
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and y'all are on the newer side to game development and started doing this on your own. So what sort of tools are you using, and what is CeltX?
All right.
Yes.
So we're using RenPy as our engine.
Wow.
Just baseline. Well, if we're making something that's mostly a visual novel, we might as well use a tool built exclusively for that. And
We considered Unity at first, and then Tony was like, I don't know
Yeah.
how to make a dialogue
Yeah.
box. This is too much.
What a
It's a
shockingly
big Unity
appropriate
move.
choice you made.
yeah, so that's been pretty good. I appreciate the flexibility in there, where anything that we haven't been able to do in the box, we've just been able to quickly put together like in a day or two.
You say we. Thank you, Tony, for being able to do these things. I guess I draw the pictures for it, and that's a pretty big part of it.
Do you write like
Oh, right.
a lot of most of the words? I don't know. The words have blended together. They're both of us.
Yeah,
but,
we don't know who's
yeah,
who's anymore.
Originally, Abby used Twine for episode 1 script, and then I insisted we move over to Celtics because I did not like Twine. So Celtics was a screenwriting software that I used in college. I was a screenwriting major, and they, I guess at some point recently, made a specific separate tool for like narrative game design. So you have like branching paths and stuff. It's cloud-based, and you can have collaborators on there, which
I cut out a big part of the development process.
What's the output of it? You put in your words, and what do you get back out of it?
It is, so part of it will be like a similar visual to what you'd get from Twine, where you have blocks that connect to each other. It also formats like the subsections as like a screenplay, so it automatically handles like spacing and formatting, so it's more readable. It can keep track of variables, but for the most part, variables and flags are something that I add when I'm putting the script into the engine. And they have a tool too that lets you nest within like big chunks of script, like dialogue trees.
It's still pretty new.
It's like it's the sort of thing where it's like once they get the dialogue trees actually working, I'm going to love that feature. But I think it's specifically our game is just too wordy for it to handle that. Where it's like it was clearly designed with, okay, like one character says a short sentence and then you have short sentence replies where sometimes our characters wax poetic and there isn't a good way on that tool set to, I guess, like stretch and move around bits of dialogue so it doesn't become a giant cloud of text.
So how then do you get it into Ren'Py after?
So I've got a screen here with the Celtic script, and then I've got another screen with Ren'Py, and then I type it in.
Yeah.
Classic.
Sometimes I'll copy paste, but for the most part, like moving the script from Celtics to Ren'Py or Twine to Ren'Py is like one of the biggest stages in our editing process. So I'll be reading it, and I will. Sometimes even if I don't change something, I'll just rewrite a sentence word for word because typing things in turns on editor brain for me.
Yeah,
I have to say, absolutely astonished by I would never have guessed that it used Ren'Py. I mean, like Ren'Py is very much like a visual novel software, but I feel like a lot of Ren'Py games very much like seem like they were made in Ren'Py to like to put it in that way. And y'all's definitely like escapes like it escapes from the engine into its own thing.
I appreciate that a lot. I think there's still a couple things we can do to hide those final bits. Our save and load screens are still very original Ren'Py, but I also think those are pretty okay. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's great about Ren'Py, but is also I don't even want to call it like a blessing and a curse, is it is a very good entry level tool to use. So like there's going to be a lot of folks who make games with it and then don't go through a bunch of painstaking effort to be like, now how do I like take all of these things that were baked into the UI and change it so it's unique, because they just want to make a game. And I think it's awesome that there's a tool that lets you make visual novels so easily.
Yeah, love that.
Speaking about some of your other efforts, Tony, you've been doing a ton of marketing and communicating and writing blog posts. You had a Kickstarter, live streaming, Patreon, and congrats on winning AT&T Unlocked Games. You won 2 prizes in that. What has been the most successful out of all these approaches you've made to sort of build an audience? Both, I guess, in terms of getting people and, I don't know, making you happy and enjoying the process.
Abby making comics for
6
or 7 years.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I do think, right, like the reason that we were able to recover so gracefully from not understanding how to launch something on Steam as a platform, for instance, is, and we knew this would be the case going into it, but like, this was Abby's 7th Kickstarter. Every single one is funded. We had like a big audience from that. We have, a big backer kit profile that has like, I guess at this point, an email list of like 8,000 people. So we did have a lot of tools available to begin with. I think in terms of like fresher marketing efforts, working with streamers has been great. I think something that we've done that I have to recommend so much to other games is like figure out like a list of games that if people played those games, they'd like your game, and just figure out on Twitch who are the streamers that like played like at least 2 of those games in the past year or 2, and then just reach out to them. And I don't know, like I remember leading up to our launch, like I coming from like a tech startup background was used to like, all right, and here's the email list of like 200 people I have to prepare to get like a couple leads and chase that down. So it's like we went into like our pre-launch marketing with a list of like 100 streamers and like 100 press people, and on the streamer front, like half the people got back to us within a few hours. And I think a lot of that was Abby has beautiful art, so our screenshots spoke to people. But I think another part was just like I spent a little bit of time making sure I was reaching out to the right people who were in the right space, and I was open to reaching out to folks that maybe had smaller audiences than a lot of people would normally be targeting, like folks that have like maybe one to 2,000 followers on Twitch.
Yeah, and sort of pivoting into what you mentioned before, Abby, you are a very accomplished comics artist. So would you say comics is your first love as a creative medium, or is games starting to win you over? Like, what's that like?
Gotta be comics. I just love it so much. I mean, it's I've wanted to be a cartoonist since the day I figured out that comics were a thing. So I was very fortunate to be able to do that for so many years and continue to. I mean, it's not like my career's over or anything. Like
when you enter the game development dome, you cannot leave.
Yeah, you've only had like a one-woman 350-page horror comic anthology come out in the past year.
Yeah, Crossroads at Midnight. Buy it on the internet. It's very good. That's what people say. Yeah, so I will forever do comics, but also comics is a lot of work. Like games is also a lot of work, but comics, oh god, like the standard is you finish like a graphic novel in a year, like that's a publishing standard. That is an incredible amount of work to do. Like I usually wound up with at least a few weeks every year where I was doing 16-hour days, no stopping, no breaks. I would just wake up, work until I literally couldn't anymore, go to sleep, do it all again. I had no time to go to the gym, do groceries. For the Crossroads at Midnight, I was doing that for 3 or 4 months at the end, probably more like 3 months. But yeah,
that's brutal.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I guess it's a good thing you like it then.
Yeah, exactly. Like I do it because at the end of the day, I'm like, but this is gonna look so good when people can finally read it. So I love how much creative control I have, and it's just a kind of a medium that makes a lot of sense to me, and I can do every part of it. So I love that. But also, games is incredibly rewarding. I love it. So I love them both. But
good that you can
like
do both then.
a lot. Yeah.
Do you find, do they scratch different itches at all in terms of the stories you want to tell or the skills you want to exercise?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I couldn't tell anything like Scarlett Hollow. I couldn't make Scarlett Hollow into a graphic novel. So much of it is dependent on how the character interacts with it. Like we have a bunch of planned endings, and I feel like all of them are really interesting. And it's kind of like this thing where when I'm writing a comic, like especially a short horror comic, I have a few endings possibly in mind, like, you know, on a range of bleakness. And I'm just like, I feel like people would probably be happy with one or another. It probably depends on who's reading the story. But with a game, I don't have to decide. I can just write all of the endings. They can like figure out which one they find most satisfying.
Is that dangerous in terms of, you know, just signing up for too much work to do? If like, oh, I don't have to decide, I'm doing it all. Is that?
I mean, I always do that.
I mean, that's also just like a very conscious design decision we made with this game, where I think something you see with so many narrative games is sort of feature bloat, where it's like, and here's this mini game, here's that mini game, here's this extra screen that you can use to navigate things. And there are a lot of games like that that I absolutely love. Like What Remains of Edith Finch is incredible, and it is 100% mini games. But we just kind of decided, because thematically it's so important with Scarlett Hollow that you, the player, are the main character and the events of the game are happening to you. That like the only feature we're really focusing on is the interactivity. And that means like, yeah, we're on episode 2 of 7 and the script is already blowing up in all of these different directions. But like, that's our singular focus. Like,
we make sure that we like keep all those threads in mind, and this is what we spend all of our mental energy on, instead of like, well, but how do we make it more interactive? Do we need to put like a fishing mini game in here?
Do we need segments where you click on doors to navigate between rooms and click on items in the background, and then like a an Ace Attorney style present item to other people to unlock new things. Like, it is very just your choices are the thing that matters, and we are making sure it matters. So it's like, I think one of the things that some people haven't quite realized is there's actually a couple very big decisions in our first episode. And there's like one that's super obvious, but there's one at the end where it's just like, all right, well, you know, what house are you sleeping at? And depending on what house you sleep at, like the first 15 minutes of episode 2 is an entirely separate experience that shines light on different angles of the story and shares different information with the player. I think at this point, like we've been talking about episode 7, and depending on at least a couple choices, it is essentially going to be 2 entirely different games that are each going to have their own nesting within it.
Whoa.
But that's for future us.
That's what future us to worry about, but also just like we come on things like this and talk about, oh yeah, the most important thing is that your choices matter. So we have to put on
it true.
Yeah, your commitment is admirable.
Oh yeah.
And I also believe you can do it. It's one of those. I wouldn't necessarily say that about every team, but I'm impressed.
I believe you can do it, but also for selfish reasons, because I want to see all of it.
Yeah. So I guess looking forward in the nearer term, Chapter 2 is coming out in like a month?
Soon. Yeah,
I'd say June 11th-ish?
June. It's either going to be June 4th or June 11th, because we want to release on a Friday, and we want to release before the Steam Summer Sale.
Yeah.
I am tentatively leaning towards saying the 11th, just to err on the side of caution.
Give us some more testing time.
But I think for both of us, game design, at least in terms of our productivity, is a very non-linear process, and the closer we get to a deadline, just like the more we wholly get immersed into the zone, and we're starting to get to that point. So
yeah, that's how it always goes for me near deadlines since my days in high school, where it's just like, I'll be able to work good on this later, so I'll just put that off for now. And then it's like the night before, and I'm like, I could write a 20-page paper, no problem.
And have you had much opportunity over this last year? We're super glad you're here now, but have you had much opportunity to connect with other Boston game devs? Is this a thing you've had time or access to during pandemic?
Well,
we lived in a shell.
Yeah, we don't see other people or speak to other people, but we did happen to have the opportunity to kind of get to know Gwen of Lab Rat, because we were in the AT&T Unlocked games. Wait, Games Unlocked.
Unlocked games, you had it right.
Unlocked.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yes, the competition. So we got to meet each other and find out that we both lived in Boston. So that was really neat.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Gwen is fantastic. Yeah, I'm really glad to have you here, and that's part of what I was saying. I said before in our pre-call, like that. This show is about trying to keep Boston feeling like we are a community of people meeting each other, and so there's just this only getting to talk to you two now is one of those bittersweet signs of what I've missed out on over the last year, because I wish that I and a lot of other people in this community could have been part of your lives, if only to enjoy the good stuff you're making even earlier. So I'm really glad that you have connected with us now.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for connecting with us too.
Yeah.
And thanks for putting these on.
Yeah.
Of course. And thanks so much for being on, which leads us to our last and most important and most brutal question. How can people follow your work or connect with you on the internet or otherwise?
We are at Black Tabby Games on Twitter, I believe.
Yes.
And I am at Abby Howard.
I am at Tony Howard Arias, but I mostly just tweet from at Black Tabby Games.
Yeah, I post a lot of art and stuff.
I can't do 2 Twitter accounts.
It's impossible.
Then I have to figure out, do I want to see this thing from this one account or the other? I'm just gonna do it from the account that gets more engagement.
And I am at abby.h.howard on Instagram. I don't think we have other social media.
I mean, there's our Steam page.
There's our
Please
Steam
follow and
page.
wishlist Scarlet
Which
Hollow
was Scarlet
on Steam.
Hollow.
Yeah,
Yeah, everybody go play that first chapter right now. Free. Do
it's
it.
free.
It's worth your time.
It's good. Yeah.
It's at least an hour of fun.
Unless you
Go pretty
speed read.
fast. Unless you speed read.
Very
because it's
occasionally
45
someone
minutes of
leaves
fun.
a Steam review. It's like, this was great, but it was only 20 minutes long. And I'm just like, no.
God.
No.
They're just trying to
Come
flex on us.
Yeah,
Like-
it's like, I'll see their time play. It's like, geez, did you really finish?
Audience question: is it really scary?
That's hard
No.
for me to judge. I don't think so.
I don't think so. There was a Steam review recently that said trigger warning, jump scares. I don't know what jump scare they would be talking about. Occasionally spooky things happen.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's very spooky, but we have also had people get very scared. So there's that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard as creators to judge the spookiness of your own work because
Yeah, I like
you're looking at the bones of it.
Yeah.
all
so
the time.
much.
I wish we could like go into this game without having made every single piece of it so that we could actually enjoy it. Because
Yeah.
we made this game because we wanted to see games like this.
Like, I think if you enjoyed
course.
Night in the Woods, you'd probably be okay with this as long as you're able to handle a little bit of gore.
Yeah. That's how I feel too.
No, yeah, I agree. Approximately like Night in the Woods level. Yeah.
Let's. This is excellent stuff to carry on in our happy hour conversation.
Wonderful.
So yeah, we're about ready to. If you're in the Boston Game Dev Slack, Chris is going to throw the link out there to join us on this call and have a drink or sandwich or I don't know, order pizza, whatever, and come and chill with us for a bit.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the
Of course.
Of
show.
course, we enjoyed this very much.
Yeah,
it
this
was
was
nice
fun.
to meet you.
Ah, it's nice to meet you too.
Back
What's
to
up?
you, Chris.
Yeah, let's have one more round of applause for our guests here.
Clap for ourselves.
Yay.
And yeah, with that, we're going to wrap it up here. I'll post a link to the Zoom call in the events channel on the Boston Game Dev Slack in just a minute. Please join us next week, same time, same channel, for a chat with the current highest score BitShow viewer, Chris Chung, developer of Cat Lateral Damage, Remeowstered, with 82 points. Can you believe it? 82 points. Just amazing. In the lead by, what is that, 15? 15 points ahead of the next person. Just incredible. In fact, you know what? Let's give Chris a round of applause, too. Why not? And I'll try
Lateral
to...
damage is from Boston? Oh, man.
That's right. There he is. The man himself. He's green. He even spent a point to turn himself green, and he's still in the lead. Wow. Next week, twitch.tv/Boston Indies. Join us again next week. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us this week. And yeah, we'll see you in the happy hour in just a minute. Goodbye.